Hello, everyone. I'm Bob McMasters, and welcome to the Tuesday Night Live Show. I'm your host, and tonight we have a different kind of show for you and content that may very well be the future of our industry. At least this is a great opportunity to look at the different options with freedoms that we can all love. We hope you've had a great start to your week, so sit back and enjoy the show we have on board for you tonight. This is Tuesday Night Live. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for our weekly live stream. And we are so glad to have you along for the ride this week. Please welcome our co host for tonight. That's right. The Rambler, the Traveling Man, Spangle is in the house.
Yo! Oh, I thought after being in Texas for a couple weeks, I ought to be looking the part.
Exactly, man. That's sharp. I like it. I like it. So speaking of house, we've got our Tuesday Night Live producer over here to my right. Please say hello and welcome to not only Angela Mack tonight, but also my wife, Mrs. Carol. She's over there helping out. Throw them a hello, a warm welcome, something in the comment box, a smiley face emoji, something. We're a very experienced guest with us joining us for this week's episode 6, and he has taken a step that many of us have considered the last handful of years. Yes, that's right. The industry is in flux. It's always changing. And I think our guest tonight has a great solution to some of the situations that some of us find ourselves in. And he is here tonight to lay it out step by step. First of all, I want to thank everyone once again who is joining us tonight and remind all the Tuesday Night Live Show can be found on Facebook at the Tuesday Night Live Show. And now, that's right, and now youtube.com at // at the Tuesday Night Live Show 1225. Hey, and some watched us on the big screen last week. I thought that was a little bit too much of us, when you start throwing us up on 60 and 75-inch screens. But hey, YouTube, fantastic. Go over and join in if you want to watch it on the big screen. All right, so while you're over there, man, if you want to give us a like, that helps get our content out. Throw us a comment into the box, or even here on Facebook, throw comments in. Share, subscribe. We do appreciate you. The first half of the Tuesday Night Live Show trivia is brought to you by SchoolofSantas.com, hosted in beautiful, scenic Branson, Missouri, where education and fun meet.
Are we ready?
We are ready. This is a good one. I like this question. Love it.
In 2002, divers discovered something at the bottom of the Lake of the Ozarks. When they got it to the surface, they were able to confirm it was what? Then they found out it actually belonged to blank blank. So, in 2002, divers discovered something at the bottom of the Lake of the Ozarks. When they got it to the surface, they were able to confirm it was what? Then they found out it actually belonged to blankety blank.
That's right. This is pretty cool. I love doing these trivias, getting to research and come up with these great answers. And so get your fingers working, see what you can find there. Of course, this is School of Santas, and this gives you the opportunity, if you are the winner of this trivia question, to put your name in the hat for a drawing for a $359 scholarship to the July classes, one or the other. Spangle says we're going to hold the drawing a few weeks before the actual date of the school. So still got time to win a few here and get your name in the hat. The more you win, the more chances you have. All right, so let's move along and go ahead and do the promo, and we'll be right back here in about 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
The first half of tonight's Tuesday Night Live show is brought to you by SchoolOfSantas.com. Kick off your 2023 season with inspiration from the School of Santas, an annual premier educational opportunity where fun and education meet, and is held each year the third weekend in July in scenic Branson, Missouri. School of Santas prides itself in bringing in a variety of new instructors and presenters each year, which makes this school unique in the Christmas community. Offering quality education, training, and fun for only $359. Included in your tuition is 4 days of classes, Thursday through Sunday, and 4 fun nights of entertainment. 2 of these are in-house, along with 2 Branson theater shows, where the class can enjoy time out on the town. We kick off both nights with a parade, our annual School of Santas tribute to Daisy May. All meals provided during class served in-house include a total of 4 dinners and 3 lunches. And breakfast is also included if staying at the host hotel. To close out the weekend, we have the Sunday graduation reception with Elvis entertaining on stage. We also have our expanded StuffForSanta.com mobile store in-house all weekend along with other select premier vendors. Remember, School of Santas Branson, Missouri is where fun and education meet. For more information, or to reserve your $359 educational, fun vacation in Branson, contact Tanya Lay at 1-800-432-4202 or email Tanya at bransonticket.com. Hotel rooms are not included in the price. Reservations for your room at the American by Wyndham Branson and Conference Center can be made at the time of registration. Remember to contact Tanya at 1-800-432-4202 before it's too late. Now, back to tonight's show.
I hear
Man, that looks like the place to be. Wow. I want to go.
Yeah, hey. I hear that it's filling up pretty fast now. So closer we get, the less chairs there are left.
Yeah, when it gets to that point, man, we're gonna have to wait till next year if you don't get in. Anyways, tonight's featured guest is joining us from the White Lake, Michigan, and is here to open our way of thinking about where your Santa is going, and explains to us all about how there has to be more to being Santa. His journey will spell out what to do, how to start, and make a plan. We are super excited to have joining the Tuesday Night Live show for the first time, Santa Loren Jensen. Put your hands together.
Hi, Loren. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing great. Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
You are looking good. Of course, you was at School of Santas last year, and we got to sit down and talk throughout the weekend. So excited to have you on tonight. So we got a lot to cover, so let's go ahead and get busy here. It's good to see you again, as I said, and we're stoked to hear how you went from, in your words, being tied down by a photo company to being your own quarterback. First, let's find out how it all started with you explaining your Santa history leading up to the point of making that change.
Well, galaxy far, far away, I was Santa's brother. And I did that for about 26 years. And it was a lot of fun. But it wasn't enough. And my wife and I talked about doing a Santa and Mrs. Claus window shop. I mean, you used to have mannequins in the windows when you walked past a store. And what we wanted to do was to make toys and bake cookies and then sell them for charity and that type of thing. That's what we planned on doing. Unfortunately, my wife got sick and she passed away in 2008. And that really took my Christmas spirit and put it in the dumpster. Um, it was it was really a tough time of my life, and it was I wasn't even looking to rejuvenate it. But Brian Campbell, uh, a friend of mine, he's also Santa up here in Michigan, uh, convinced me to go to Charles W. Howard for a weekend just to see if you like it, and which is what I did. I went there and I didn't have a room or anything. I just went up there and I was going to see what it was about and then leave and go back to White Lake. And well, that was Thursday, and then Friday came, and then Saturday came, and I finally left on Sunday and realized that this was something that I really, really thought I would like to do. And it got my spirit back. I'd see all the guys and the gals there that were doing what I hadn't even thought about doing, other than with my wife, and learning about all the kinds of things that you can do. And so that's where I started, and that was in 2012. And the first year I only had like 3 gigs. There was a couple of charity things and then some other stuff, but nothing. I wasn't at a mall or anything like that. But the next year, in 2013, I ended up replacing what I call a bad Santa because he pulled a knife on the set, and it, well, he'd come in drunk and what have you, and they got rid of him pretty quick, and they didn't have anybody to fill in, so they called me. Somebody called me. I don't even know who called me, but I ended up working for Cherry Hill, and I was the second Santa. Bob Garrison was the first Santa and the lead Santa, and I did that for a couple of years, and I was having fun doing it, and it was easy. I mean, I shouldn't say easy. It was repetitive. I mean, it wasn't. You weren't being pushed, other than getting the children through the line, and and then in 2015, I ended up having after the Charles W. Howard uh, school that year, I ended up having a cyst on my liver that was 200 millimeters, which is almost 8 inches in size, and it was pushing on my diaphragm and it's trying to suffocate me is what it was trying to do. The day before I was supposed to be at the mall, um, I went into emergency for to get that drained, and the doctor said that I wouldn't be working the entire year, and that just floored me again. I mean, it was just one of these things I mean, I almost died from it, but it just how I mean, how can I not see the people that I've come to know and love? And as it turns out, during the year, I'd go to the grocery store, other places, and the children would see me and come up to me and say, hi Santa, how are you? And it got me back going again. And then in 16 and 17 and 18, I became the lead Santa at the Westland Mall, and Bob moved up to a higher upper scale mall, and then I had second Santas working for me. So that was kind of good. And this was all through Cherry Hill, and it was very, very it was good. But during that time, there was about 6 years that I spent going to Charles W. Howard, and there's something didn't feel right, and it wasn't about the school itself. It was about what I was getting out of that school, and that was the beginning of the turning point of starting to think alternately about what might be out there. And with the way the industry has changed in the last several years, because of COVID and other things, and the malls being de-emphasized and that type of thing. It's becoming more difficult to be a mall Santa, and to try and uh, not as many people are going to the mall, so you don't see as many people. You don't get the interactions. You don't have the fun that you have in seeing them. Some of the most fun I had was seeing the, the kids that come in, the special needs kids. I loved it because you could get out there and you could interact with them, and you aren't supposed to leave the chair. Like, I mean, that's one of the rules. No, no, that's not Santa. Santa goes and sees who he needs to see. And I'd get in a little bit of trouble with that. But as it, that was kind of the background. I did not pick up very many out of mall type events. I'd have a corporate here, I'd have a school there, and maybe a church or two, and that kind of thing, and a couple of family visits. But it wasn't my mainstay work. My mainstay work was the mall, and so I started using the D lights, and I did all kinds of crazy things on the chair, and to get people involved and have them come up and interact with me, because I needed that. It wasn't that, I mean, they wanted it too, but I needed it for my own personal uh, growth. But the problem was, I wasn't growing. I wasn't going anywhere, and that's kind of that's what led Bob Garrison and I to start talking about what are some alternates, what things could we do. And about 7 miles from my house, there is a Santa cabin, and I interestingly enough, I didn't know who the man was, and he lives in a log cabin where he grew up, and so it's a 80-year-old log cabin. And I met him through a friend of mine in Tyler, Texas, and the Santa Mike was 7 miles away, and that's the other thing that really started showing me what the possibilities might be. And it also created other barriers in my mind, because you don't want to horn in on somebody else's territory. I mean, somebody's in the mall, you don't walk in. If another Santa's in the mall, you don't walk in on that mall Santa. And that was like what I felt is that I live 7 miles from him, so that's not that far. So would I be taking uh, customers, clients of his away from him? And they assured me, don't worry about it, don't worry about it. And that was really the basis. And like I said, Bob Garrison and I talked about this at length over the summers and even during the season, to say, what can we do to get out of this? We're kind of stuck in this, and that's kind of how this all started. But so I don't know if there's and then it starts into what actually happened after that, because everything happened in 2019, and during that time, in 19, I started looking at alternate um, schools to go to, because I got to thinking. I said, well, you can go to the University of Wisconsin and get something. You can go to the University of Missouri and get something different. You can go to Michigan State and get something different, like a good basketball team, and that type of thing. So there are specialties. There's different information being taught in different schools. And so I started, casting around trying to find one. And one of the first ones that was School of Santa, when uh, Susan Mesco came down. And that was one of the first ones that I had kind of, just to see what was going on. And what in doing this, I started identifying a problem that I had. And this was a bigger problem than I thought it was, and maybe it's in my mind, but I felt it was a physical thing that people, children and adults could see in the way I was reacting. And the what I found was that what I did was I'd go to these schools, like I'd been going to Charles W. Howard for six years, and I would go up there to listen to all the veterans, and some of the newbies that would come in, listen to their reaction to questions, their reactions and their stories and things like that that made them who they were. And I got to thinking about when I get on the chair at the mall, what I was finding was that when I was asked a question, what I would do is I would sit for, it probably was a second, maybe a second and a half, whatever. But there was a pause between the question and my answer. And that I visualized as a problem, because that, to me, that means that you don't know your material. And I'm not one to memorize material. I'm not one to go through and and I don't work off scripts normally. And so that pause was me going through my head, finding that question that some other child asked, and four different Santas answered at Charles W. Howard. And then I would pick one of those answers, pull it out, and give it back to the child. And it was awkward. It was uncomfortable. It made my character shallow, because there was this gap, this timing issue that I had. And some of the Santas said, "Well, don't worry about that. Your speech pattern is what your speech pattern is." And having had amnesia for over a week back in the early 70s from who knows what, uh, uh, that created a speech pattern for me that I still am trying to get over with, because you'll notice that I pause every once in a while when I'm speaking. And you have to be able to handle that and create the image that the life of Santa is your life. And if somebody asks you a question like, "Well, how old are you?" "I'm 74. They said, "What do you mean you're 74? "I'm only 74 because the elves gave me a ring that keeps me eternally young." I mean, and rather than saying, "I'm 1,752 years old now because I'm St. Nicholas," you have to stop and think about that, because it's not your story. And so those are some of the things that were driving me to find something to, I don't know, fill that gap, I guess it is. And I did find it, but we'll talk about that in a different portion of this. But uh, those were things. They were basically some things that you might call anomalies, because I created this baseline. Uh, there's a very good book out right now that is non-mainstream, but it's called Left of Bang, and it applies to my situation and probably a lot of other Santas. What it Go ahead.
Lauren, let's we back up for just a moment here, and why don't you tell us a little bit about what made you first don the red suit for the first time? And was it your idea, or were you asked by somebody to do this?
Brian Campbell really was the uh, impetus behind going to school, because I had no red suit. I mean, I didn't have nothing like that. And when he suggested that I go just to see what it was about, and when I walked away from that was really the key to doing what I do now, because I found something that I had been missing in my life. And it's probably, I've had the opportunity because I've had some medical issues that have put me very close to um, having wings, and those those situations have allowed me to look back through my life and find how I got to where I was or where I am today. And you find all these little pathways and these little crooks in your path, and you're being guided, you're being pulled. You have a there's a in my thought process there's a pillar of light in front of me, and I'm trying to follow that light, but you can see the light from many different directions, and those directions are you can get off the path that you're following, but you can still see the light, which can always draw you back to the light. And that's what happened to me when I went to Charles W. Howard. The light was still in front of me. The light was out there. It's just that I wasn't seeing it from the right perspective. And when I got finished with the first year at Charles W. Howard in 12, it was like, I mean, I knew exactly where I was supposed to go. It's like when my wife was diagnosed with Alzheimer's at 52. I had I mean, there was a block there. I mean, it just can't happen. It just can't happen. Well, one evening, there, I got sat down and I got hammered on really, really hard. And it wasn't by anybody in my family. It wasn't by any friends. I was alone. And I got hammered so hard that when I woke up from what had happened that night, everything was clear. The path was there. And I knew where I had to go and what I had to do. And the same thing when I finished with Charles W. Howard that first year. I saw the light again and I started following the light. And that's what I've been doing ever since. So Brian Campbell is the one that suggested I go to school. And I really appreciate the fact that he did that, because he was someone that was brought into my life to get me back on that path. And that path has been absolutely phenomenal since. So that's pretty much
as I mentioned, destiny is the word that comes to mind when I hear about your story and where you've been, where you're headed.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and move along here, Loren. In your PowerPoint that you sent me, which was very intriguing, I loved everything about what you sent for me to work off of. You listed 10 bullets under there has to be more to being Santa. If you can, let's pick up at the beginning of that where you enjoyed them all and run down those 10 points. You don't have to go into a lot of detail, but just kind of give us an idea of what these 10 points were and how that got you in the process of starting the Santa Shed.
Okay. Basically, the very first thing about the mall was that it was comfortable. I mean, it wasn't intimidating for me. Initially, it was, but eventually you get used to doing what you're doing.
Right.
It's like most any job. You kind of get in the groove and you do it. And over the years that I worked for Cherry Hill, it was quite financially rewarding. I mean, my especially when I became lead Santa, and that was it made my retirement much more valuable because I was making a little extra money, and I could do the go to the schools and do the things that I want to do and get a different suit and that type of thing. And I worked for some really, really great people. I mean, these people were concerned about you. They wanted you to succeed. At least the managers that I had, and the mall management wanted us to succeed, because if we succeeded, they succeeded, because more customers, they get more door swings, they get more people, more pictures, and blah blah blah. And so they were very happy. And the next thing was that it was fun to be there in the morning and watch all the mall walkers going around.
I
Uh,
love that.
it is absolutely hilarious. Not to watch them, but I never thought, I never expected this to happen. It's kind of like uh, you you have a store, and all the guys in the neighborhood come to the store to have coffee. That was the kind of atmosphere it was. And they'd come through and they'd stop and talk, and then they'd be on their way walking again. And when they came or made their next loop, they'd stop and talk again. And it was a lot of fun. And I met a lot of really interesting people. And uh, if they didn't stop, they'd wave. I mean, it was very, very, it was a lot of fun. And you guys understand that.
I agree with you.
And the one thing that I was trying to do during the last couple of years was to try and find a way of practicing the craft of being Santa, even though I was on the mall chair, which is kind of restrictive. So I was able to pick the shift that I wanted to work, and I got very possessive of the first shift, the morning shift or afternoon, early afternoon, whatever. And I did that because the traffic was less. I didn't have the lines that you'd have in the afternoon after school got out and so on and so forth. I'd have a lot more little children, babies and toddlers, which I totally adore. My 3-year-old granddaughter is one of them, and it's a lot of fun. And so I could pick the shift I wanted to be able to do some of the things that I wanted to do. And regardless of being under the chains of Cherry Hill or whatever mall you're working for, uh, I wanted some freedom, and that's why I picked first shift. And it also allowed me to be able to do private gigs, so I could still go out and do home visits. I had all afternoon and evening to do those, or I could do an afternoon uh, corporate event or a church on Sunday or whatever. And so I didn't do a lot of those, but uh, it gave me the opportunity to do them. So I kind of dabbled in it, which is something I like to I like to recommend if I can recommend. I'm not sure I'm at a position to recommend anything to anybody, but uh, you try these different things, try the different venues that are out there that you can practice your craft and do things, and it'll make you grow. It'll make you find the niches, whatever the word is, that you will be comfortable in. And so that was very important. And one year I was able to work out a deal where I worked at not Cabela's, at Bass Pro Shop and the mall. So I do the morning at the mall, and then the afternoon and the evening I would do Bass Pro Shop. And that was interesting because it was a different type of environment and a different way of managing people and the flow of people, which is something I had to learn also, and that helped me in doing what I'm doing now. So I mean, it was all something that was building towards something, and I wanted to have more. The other thing in the mall, you have 20, 30, 40, 50 seconds at the most, depending on the line, that you can spend with a child. And that's not enough. I mean, they need, rather than just seeing you as this man in a big red suit, I wanted them to see me for who I was and my personality, my background, that type of thing. I couldn't go into the stories that I go into now, but uh, I wanted to, but I was frustrated. And when I would get somebody come up when there was no line at all, we'd sit down and we'd talk stories. And
Right.
I loved doing that, but you never had much time to do it. And so I wanted more contact, more time spent with children. And in a home visit, you can do that because you're spending more time, but they generally will hire you for a half hour or 45 minutes or whatever. And when you've got 8, 10 kids, the children in a home visit, because all the cousins and brothers and sisters bring everybody in, it gets really cumbersome. You can't do exactly what you want to do. And home visits, to be honest with you, I really wasn't very comfortable with them. And I have 3 or 4 that I do, but I'm not comfortable going out and doing a lot of them because I'm a very uh, I don't want to say precise, but the timing. If I'm late for something, it bothers me. So if I'm late for a home visit, it bothers me. Like 2 years ago, I was asked to come and pick up an elf on the shelf and his 2 animal buddies because the children had touched the elf on Christmas Eve. And they called me and said, come, please stop by us. And I ended up being over a half hour late, and it just bothered the crap out of me because I wasn't able to keep the schedule that I wanted. And I picked up the elf, took him back to the North Pole, and put him in the hospital, and he's well and good today. So anyway, but I wasn't comfortable with home visits. And that's when I started thinking that there's got to be more to this craft, this profession, or whatever you want to call it, than being. It's not just a mall Santa, because the mall Santa is a very, very important part of Americana. But there was more that I needed out of Santa, and that's when I started finding people that I could sit down and talk to, and basically finding someone who could help guide me with the knowledge and experience that they had. And that's finding a mentor. And I highly recommend you find somebody that you can sit and talk to and have them critique what you do. Have them say, why are you doing that? Why do you do that with your pet? That type of thing. So, but
You said there might be something more into doing what you were doing, and that might lead us into the next thing, on some highlights of what began you to formulate the future of where you took your Santa to.
well, I guess what really started was that the mall tried to curtail what I was doing, and that I didn't feel was fair to the customers, to the clients, and the children, of course. And I felt that I needed more exposure. I needed to see. Um, Actually, in my shed, I don't see as many families as I saw at the mall, but the exposure is different. The time you spend with them is different, and that to me was important. Um, at the mall, you can't work on technique as easily as you can doing what I'm doing now with a longer period of time with the family. And my and Bob and Bob was my mentor because he had been, I think had been Santa for like 17 years already, and he had done a lot of home visits and mall work, and I mean all different kinds of things, corporate stuff, advertising. Uh, he's done some television interviews and things like that. He's been at some of the big uh, sports events and stuff like that, and I mean he had a lot of extra time, but he gave me all the times when he was out doing that stuff, and I was happy to do the mall work. So
Let me break in here for a minute. I'm hearing a lot of feedback from something. Are you, Bob?
I'm not.
Well, maybe it's
I'm
just
not.
on my
Y'all hearing
end then.
any? No, they're not getting
Okay.
any over there either.
All right. It might be just on my end. I'm just getting a lot of feedback coming through.
yeah, your voice is very strong.
Okay.
I don't hear anything on my end here.
Okay.
So
Sorry.
yeah, there's nothing in here. But I guess I was doing while we were talking, while I was talking with Bob and with Mike and the other people that I consulted with, is kind of building ideas about what the future could be for my Santa, not for everybody's Santa, but for my Santa. And I had, I mean, I can't tell you how many people I talked to and tried to get advice, and eventually what it boils down to, you have to make a decision. And that's what this all comes to head at, is a decision. And I was still comfortable at the mall. I mean, it was a good gig. I mean, you get up in the morning, get your suit on, go out, sit in the chair, see a bunch of people, and go back home again. And it's like it was a job. I mean, it became a job, and I didn't see my Santa as being a job. It was more of a character that was free floating and free thought process and just doing lots and lots of different things. And that's what I envisioned. And I mean, I even went so far as to look at doing a video blog where you go around to candy shops and cookie shops and reindeer farms and stuff like that, and doing video blogs. I even looked at doing that. I mean, I checked out cameras and I checked out all that kind of stuff. But I was looking, I was searching, I was trying to pull all this stuff and stuff it in a bag. Unfortunately, the bag was too small. So, but but the other thing of being comfortable at the mall, it was hard to pull the plug. It was hard to say, I don't want to do this anymore, or I only want to do it part time.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of Santas out there that are in that, I think, that same situation. And one of the thoughts that I had was that, if the industry is changing as much as it's changing with doing the videos now and all this kind of stuff, we've had such a major change in our industry, and the way the industry reacted to what happened was like, oh my god, we got to do something different. And so everybody jumped into doing videos. I've never done a video, and I basically made that an option, but it was not something that I really looked at caring to do, because again, I couldn't do the things that I'm doing, and you don't have enough time to do the story content that I use, and and to build from one story onto another, because my my Santa story has become very, very different. We'll get into that maybe a little later, but in as by feeling like you're being tied to the mall because it was comfortable, it was financially acceptable, um, and I was just comfortable. It was work. I mean, you don't change jobs when you are comfortable at what you're doing. I mean, well,
Yeah,
I
and you get into a comfort zone because it's home. It's what you've done in the past. You've got years of experience doing it.
yep,
And again, for me, it's the structure of it all. As you say, if you look at the two sides of the business world as Santa, if you go out and do your own gigs, you got to, travel a lot, you got to do your own contracts. I mean, there's a lot involved in being an independent Santa opposed to just showing up at the mall and doing your job. And it does become a job. It
yep,
becomes comforting and like you just hate to walk away and give it up the years that you've invested, and then to think that another Santa will come in and take your chair, and that you'll never be able to go back there.
right,
Because in my case, the gentleman before me was there 12 years, I've been there 10 years, so if I was to leave, I don't think I would get that gig back. So I see where you're coming from there, and it does become comfortable.
And
So it just go ahead.
and and I think we all have to develop our own path. I mean,
Yeah,
and and there's nothing, absolutely nothing. I hate it when people tell me that I'm just a mall Santa. No, you're not just a mall Santa. You're a Santa at the mall. And it's a different, you just rearrange the words, but being just a mall Santa is the only exposure that some children will ever have to a Santa. That's as close
right.
as they'll ever get.
And you're
And
filling a niche that needed to be filled. You know, you're there doing a job, as you say, but it's an important job.
it's a wonderful job. And I like I said, I hate it when people when other Santas say, "Well, I'm just a mall Santa."
Yeah. All right.
They anyway.
I'm sorry.
So what all boils down on this is I started going out and doing more Santa schools to see what other people were doing, and that's really um, what happened was the trying to figure out what to do and how to do it, and that's where I got to, and then my world exploded.
Yeah, it's looking for that next perspective, broadening, the tools that you have to work with, and then deciding which direction you're going to go. So, Spangle, he's already kind of, or actually has answered the next question that I was going to take. So you go ahead and move on to the next one.
Okay, so Lauren, now that you know that the change was imminent and you needed to figure something out, like what to do, tell us where you were in your thinking and where was I, and how you went about
Yeah,
it.
that was under the column. Where was I?
Well, in 2019, um, again, I'd been working on and talking about many different ideas. And in 2019, um, over the 6 years that I had negotiated the contract with Cherry Hill, we'd always come to terms. Well, in 2019, when they decided to ask if I wanted to be the Santa at the Westland Center again, um, I held back and I said, "No, yeah, I would like to, but you know, let me think. Let me give me a couple of weeks. I'll think about it." Well, this was like in August probably, and by September we were into the point of negotiating a contract, and I went through and marked them all up the way I normally marked them up for the last 6 years, and and they had been accepted and signed and everything. And in 19, they said we're not negotiating anymore. We're not going to negotiate salary. We're not going to negotiate terms. We're not going to negotiate conditions. You're going to accept this contract or you're not. And and I mean, I was like, oh yeah, okay, sure. So I sent the contract back all marked up again, and they sent it back. Said no, we're not accepting this. And I said, well, we went through the whole thing. You've done this before, and blah 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 blah. And so what they did is said, well, we'll get back to you. And they waited. It was the 1st of October. Then it was the first week in October. Then the second week in October. Well, by mid-October, I hadn't heard from them. And then I called them up and I said, what's going on? And they said, well, we're not negotiating with you anymore. This was the middle of October and of 19. And I mean, my mind it was like somebody put me in a KitchenAid mixer. My mind was just going every which direction. Said, how could you wait this long and tell me this? You could have at least given me a warning. Well, I think there was an ulterior motive, but we won't go into any of that. But because I have no proof of it, but I truly believe it. And I started thinking. I said, well, here I've negotiated a reasonable contract for 6 years, and now I don't have anything to fall back on. What am I going to do? Where am I going to go? How's the season going to work? I had no I didn't have a home visit or a corporate visit or anything like that in depth. It was very superficial. It was just kind of fill in the blanks, cover my gas type of thing. And I had a couple churches, a couple country clubs, but they don't pay the bills. And it was mid-October, and no mall work. There weren't any malls around. They were cutting back on the number of Santas in malls. They were going back to single Santa malls instead of dual or triple Santa malls. And that meant there was nothing to do. So what am I going to do? I was all of a sudden, like in the book I mentioned, Left a Bang. The bang happened. It's like an explosion. It's something very, very detrimental happened. You get like if you're in Afghanistan, you get ambushed, you hit an IED or whatever. That's the bang. So here now I was after the bang. I was to the right of the bang because the bang already happened. So now I got to react, and that's where I came to what do I do, and that was the next step in going through my journey. But
so that's where you started to make a plan and started implementing what next. Like say, October's awful late to start trying to make a plan, but how did you proceed from there?
Well, there was a lot of prayer. That seems to solve a lot of problems, but you still got to do the work.
Legwork, right?
Yeah. So where was I? I was free. I could do anything I wanted. I wasn't tied down. I had nobody to report to except myself. And that is really a key to realizing that you can really do something at that point because you have nowhere else to go. You got to do something. So in effect, I was my own quarterback now. I was calling the shots. The plays were going to be mine. And if if I pick the wrong play, I lose yards. If I pick the right play, you might get a touchdown and that type of thing. But basically what you end up doing is you end up scrambling. You end up looking at all the options you have and evaluating them based on the pros and cons. What's good about this one? What's bad about this one? Some might be financial, some might be regulations. It could be anything. But now you start balancing, and it's like juggling. And you're juggling to try and find the right rhythm to make this all happen. And then I realized that when I finally came down, I realized that I had to reinvent myself.
Right.
And I had to go back into the history, into the gray matter, and find what I had been talking about. Because I wasn't making notes or anything. It was something that, maybe we'll do it in the future. Well, now I had to. So I had to recover that 3 years of discussion. And the question was, could I make it happen? Could this really become what I wanted to do? And that's when I started to make a plan. And that's the only way. Even handling my wife's Alzheimer's disease, there were so many things that had to be considered. And what I did, and I've been asked to write a book about how we handled her disease. And what we basically did is we handled it as a project. And it sounds kind of cold and impersonal, but what we did is we made these lists and lists and lists of things that we had to consider. And then what you do is you do the first one and wipe it off the list and put it at the bottom because it might come back. Then you take the next one and it's the same way you eat an elephant. And when I was in China for 2 years. I was in charge of quality control, and we were trying to get an ISO 9000 rating. And I had my quality control people with me, and one day they said, "Well, this is such a big job, we can't do it. How do we go about doing this? We have no experience doing this." I said, "Well, how do you eat an elephant?" I went up to the whiteboard and I drew an elephant on the whiteboard. I said, "Now, how do you eat that elephant?" They said, "Well, we eat lots of strange things, but we don't eat elephant." And I said, "No, it's just a metaphor, whatever." I said, "No, how would you eat an elephant if you had to eat an elephant?" And I went up there with the whiteboard pen, and I carved out a chunk out of its butt, and then I made that little chunk on the ground. I said, "That's how you eat an elephant, one bite at a time."
At a time.
And it's the same way with climbing a mountain. It's one step. I mean, you got to take one step and then another step and another step, and eventually you get to your goal. And that's why I had to make a plan, because you don't get anywhere pushing a rope. And
that will lead us into the segment after our break here, making it happen. And so right here, let's take a short breather, give you a chance to rest for a minute. This is a time in the Tuesday Night Live show where we always do what we call halftime break, but it's for special product announcement. So stay with us, Loren. Stay with us, Michael. We'll be right back.
Hello. Hello.
Hey! Will somebody get the kid a Happy Meal?
No, don't do that.
Yes, that's right. It's Stop the Show. It's time for the Tuesday Night Live Showstopper Special for this week's StuffForSanta.com Showstopper Special. We're going to take it over to Spangle. He's waving something at you there. It looks like coins. You got coins this week, Spangle?
We got coins. We had lots of these still in our inventory, man. We lost a lot of inventory last week in Texas. But anyways, we got these. We're going to run these. They're normally $15 a roll. We're going to give you 10 rolls for $75 at $7.50 a roll, half price, and we're going to ship them to you free. We also have them in Mrs. Claus, too. There's 100 rolls or 100 coins to a roll, so you get 1,000 coins, $75, and it's shipped for free in the continental USA for 1 week. Get them. Get them fast.
Now, just to kind of recap here, not everyone may have known one way or the other. Spangle was down here in Texas for the Sat Bob School last weekend before, and this weekend for the Lone Star Santa's Texas Roundup. And his truck got stolen with a ton of inventory in the back of it and inside of it. So, guys, reach out, help Spangle out. He's got to move some stuff and recoup some things. And I know it's asking a lot, but you got 1 week till March 27th to reach out and grab some of these coins. There's a lot of things that he's going to be low on inventory now, but he does have plenty of coins. So reach out, make it happen for him, guys. Lone Star Santa's was really good. Got to plug my brothers down here in Texas. They did an excellent job of helping prop Spangle up this weekend, give him a hand, move his trailer, do a lot of things that need to be done. And, it's just like Loren has said, it's one bite at a time, one step at a time.
My hat's off to the Lone Star Santas. Man, they really stepped up and helped the guy out.
Really, I mean, the brotherhood is strong everywhere, and every state has their own little groups, but the Lone Star Santas is the largest out there, and those guys really came through for you this weekend, and we do appreciate it. All right, we'll be right back after this commercial.
Oh, hello there. Yes, of course, it's me, Santa Claus. Now, you may not believe this, but one of the questions I get asked the most is, well, not how do I do it all in one night? No, but where do I get all my things from? Yes, now, what am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about the finest things I have. My glorious gloves, all my knickknacks and trinkets and things. Yes, all the giveaways. Yes, for me to give to the children before the main events. Yes, if I see them in the streets, if they come and see me, I like to have something in my pockets I can treat them with. Yes, and there's one special place where I can find all these magical goods. And that is, of course, stuffforsanta.com. You should head there now and see what magical gifts you can find. Mrs. Claus, have you got my ice pad? Yes, log me on, I'm going to have a look. I shall see you there. Stuffforsanta.com. Merry Christmas.
All right. Hey, we're going to get you a couple rolls of these in the mail if you know the answer to this trivia question. The Lake of the Ozarks has some truly bizarre findings. We found that out in the earlier trivia. But one such oddity, usually not associated or present in fresh water, is what? What does the Lake of the Ozarks have that's not normally in a lake?
Yeah, another one that I found very interesting. Didn't know this one either, and so get your answers working, get those fingers to typing, figure out what the answer is here, and get a couple of rows of those coins. All right, guys.
Yeah.
So, real quick, Spangle, before we go on, I could never get tired of that stuffforsanta.com commercial that Sammy done. That is just over the top. I mean, I love watching that commercial.
Me too.
Fantastic. All right, so
I
now
think we
back
ought
to
to
the
do a whole show with nothing but the commercial over and over.
Yeah, really. All right, so back to the show. Moving on to the second half of tonight's program. Let's see what other cool stuff we can find out about the Santa shed. And over to you, Spangle.
All right. So, Loren, let's pick back up where we were before the break. Can you explain how you make it happen and finally see your dream come true?
Yes, I can do that, I think. I mean, it's not a written process that I went through. Because mine, like I was saying, mine is right of bang. So mine was reactionary. So I had to do as much as I needed and not more than I needed because it would take too long to do it. And I didn't have any time. So the plan basically included, I had to find resources to work with. I had to advertise, which I'd never done before. I had to ask for favors from people, and I normally don't ask for favors. I had to pick a name for my new whatever it was going to be, because I still didn't know what it was really going to be. I had to come up with an LLC. I had to come up with a bank account. Had to get email accounts. You had to get domain names. You had to get, a Facebook account. PayPal accounts. All this kind of stuff. And then my township stepped in and said, "Oh, what do you want to do?" "So you mean like the cabin Santa?" "Yeah, like the cabin Santa." Okay. So then I found out what the regulations were. And that's something that you really need to do if you plan on doing something like this, because your local government can just throw all kinds of kinks at you that you'd never even imagine. And
They will.
In my case, I wanted to put it in my backyard. And I figured, well, there's other people they'd fix cars and do all kinds of stuff in their backyard. And why can't I do this there? And they said, well, that you're going to have too much traffic. I said, well, I'm going to have one family at a time. So how can that be too much traffic? Well, what I didn't tell them was that that one family has mom and dad will drive cars, both of them, because they're coming from different directions. The grandmas and grandpas on both sides will bring a car, and who? I mean, before you got 4 cars already. So then the next family comes in behind them. So they forced me to go to a commercial. What do you call it? It's got a commercial. I can't think of the word right now, but it had to be commercial. It couldn't be residential, as far as the property was concerned. I had to get insurance, business insurance. I never really had business liability insurance other than what you get through Karcher's or through somebody else. And I had to check out the legality of what I was doing. I had to make, how do I make appointments? How do I get people to come and see me? How do I get heat? How do I get lights? How do I get do I need a generator? Is there something I can plug into? There's lights for the shed, decorations, toys, trinkets, trash. Get a Santa chair. Fortunately, I already had a Santa chair. But all these things, and I had to have a building to put it in. So, I mean, all these things it's a pile that you've got to go through. And it really, how can I put it? You do one thing at a time. Just like I said, you eat the elephant.
One bite at a time.
Yeah. And before you know it, I mean, from the middle of October, I found the building. The building, someone was building a garden shed, and they were going to be making a small house out of a tiny, what they call them, tiny houses or something like that. That's what they were doing. And they'd already put the floor in, the ceiling in, stuff like that, and drywall and what have you. And they turned it in. They decided not to finish it. So they turned it in. It was a rent to own. They turned it in, and I happened to be there the day that they turned it in. And it had been picked up and delivered to their office up in Mount Pleasant, Michigan. And I said, what's it look like? And they went out and took pictures. They just walked around, took pictures, sent them to the office I was at. And I didn't have any choice. I took it.
Yeah.
I didn't even know how big it was. I had no idea how big it was even at that point. I just needed someplace to put Santa. And that was the big deal. And then it took 2 weeks to get it transported down from Mount Pleasant to White Lake, and it was all over the road stuff because of the size of the building, and which I didn't realize at the time. And it was, I mean, what you're seeing is a ching, 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 and the dollars start adding up. So once that was established, then the rest of it could be looked into. And when the township people came in, the building inspectors, I said, what are you going to inspect this as? And they looked at me and said, well, the only thing we could figure out to inspect it as is like one of these portable fireworks tents. So I fall underneath the fireworks tents as the inspections that have to be taking place. And I don't have a bathroom in it, so I had to arrange for porta potty. I couldn't get lights because I was too far away from a light source, a power source. So I ended up having to get a generator. And then the generator had to be big enough, of course, to handle all the lights and the heat and everything else that went along with it. And so, I mean, there's a lot of engineering that goes in, civil engineering that goes into this thing. And it was all done in a very compressed time. And so we had to, I had to do all this in order to make it happen. Well, the inspectors in their infinite wisdom, did not give me my final inspection until the 4th or 5th of December. And so
Wow.
the season's already half gone. I mean, it's in the bag. And what I mean, they'd walk in and look and say, "Well, you got to fix this." Oh, they walk in next time. This is, oh, you got to add these lights, these exit lights. Then they walk in
They're,
next time, there's something else, and
they're like that. They
and,
do that.
and I almost felt like they were trying to not allow me to do it. Well, what I did in the meantime is I found a couple of friends that have children, either nieces, nephews, that type of stuff, and I said, "Well, just come on in and and we'll go through a little visit just to try it out and see what happens." So they did, and I mean, we hadn't been approved yet at that point, but so I had an idea of how the flow was going to go and so on and so forth. And so then by the 5th, I couldn't do any advertising. I couldn't go out and get appointments because I had no idea when anything was going to be approved. So what we ended up doing, I went on Facebook and I made a Facebook account and the Santa Shed, and that's how we started getting everything out into the public. I did a couple of newspaper ads that cost me like $1,200, and I got 0 responses to it. And I mean, I didn't take out one of these little tiny, credit card size ones. I mean, it was a quarter page.
They're expensive.
Nothing. I got nothing out of it. And it hit like 25,000 different homes. So I thought that would be a good idea. And but Facebook all of a sudden started lighting up. And by lighting up, I had dreams that it would go poof, and you'd have this great big balloon of clients coming through. And I had talked with the cabin Santa, and he said that when he started, because he had also been a Cherry Hill Mall Santa in Chicago, and it was 11 years, I think, that he had been doing the Santa cabin, and he had between 700 and 900 family visits every year. And I mean, that's encouraging. I mean, wow, if you can get that many people. I was afraid that he had the market in the small township that we're in, and that people wouldn't come and see, what I was doing. And they said, "Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It'll be there. You build it, and they'll come."
That's true. Very true. So at this point, you've made it. You're down to 3 weeks before Christmas. Kind of give us the results from that first year as far as your visits went, and the following 3 years up to last year. What you've been able to do.
Well, the first year, things were slow, and
Yeah.
because what I was doing is I was taking them by phone call. I was taking appointments by phone call. So then I had to schedule them into the calendar and blah, 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 blah. I didn't have anything automated at that point. And the first year I ended up with, I had 60 families. So basically, like 3 a day. That was 4 a day, something like that, which wasn't too bad. I thought that was pretty good. I had a lot of downtime, but it gave me time to sit and think about what I was doing and how I was organized and what have you. And so what we ended up doing is deciding the next year that we were going to be open from 12 noon to 8 p.m. And I decided to be open 7 days a week. Now I'm the quarterback, so I can make the plans. Wow. Let me tell you, my biggest fear of this whole thing was, how am I going to have enough content as Santa in a 20-minute visit. I mean, I'm used to 20 seconds, 30 seconds, 50 seconds,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
now it got 20 minutes to fill up, and then 10 minutes between visits. And that's to get people in and out and so on and so forth. And it's like, where am I going to find all this information? It's like, oh my God.
That's kind of what you'd been craving at the mall, though, was more time. As you said, they do rush you through. We have our slow days at the mall. Slow mornings, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays are slow. And if you have folks come in, you do get to spend more time with them. But you
Right.
get down to those last couple of weeks and crunch time, and those lines get an hour long. Your time is very limited. They want to run you through there really quick.
Oh, yeah.
So the 20 minutes was kind of a blessing in many ways with you.
And I thought this would be a very, very relaxing 20 minutes. They'd come in and get pictures, and they take their own pictures. I don't have a photographer. And so I basically set it to have 16 families per day, basically on the hour and a half hour, with 10 minutes between them. And
So you said your bookings are on the hour and on the half hour, so that's how you get the 20 minutes and then 10 minutes in between.
yes, and the 10 minutes in between, because I can't monitor and control my time.
Yeah.
I get talking and I don't know when to stop, and as you guys understand now. But you get into doing things. I've actually had people walk out of the shed and never take a picture. And as they're walking out, I follow them out to the door through the foyer that I've got. And I said, "You take any pictures?" They both look at each other and said, "No." So, well, come on back in here. Let's get some pictures. So we go back in,
Visit.
and the 10 minutes gets chewed up by my inability to keep a good schedule in the building. And
I think we all have that problem.
yeah, it's my problem, and it's something that I work on yearly. But the first year in 19, I had 60 visitors, family visitors, and so you generally look at 4 people per visit. And, I mean, it wasn't a big, heavy, but I only had 20 days. So the next year in 2020, which was the COVID year, where a lot of Santas were shut down and they didn't have anything other than maybe videos and stuff like that, or very little work. I had 350 families in the COVID year.
Wow.
And it was amazing. I was absolutely amazing. I did all the scheduling by hand, phone call, email, whatever. And I realized at that point I needed help. But to get 350 families during COVID, the only requirement that I had, I looked at the shields and I looked at all kinds of different stuff. The only thing I required was that when they came to the shed, that when they walked through the front door, they wore a mask. And when the door closed, they could take it off if they wanted. You were in my house. Yeah. And in Michigan, that was one of the rules, that when in your house, you could do whatever you wanted to do. And so when they came to my house, they could take their masks off. Now, some did, some didn't. Some requested that I put my mask back on. And but I was amazed at the response. It was absolutely amazing. And then that was 2020. Then 2021, I hired an elf to help me part-time. And we did 600 family visits. 620-minute performances, basically. And I've had some of the people that like Santa True. He says, "You can't do that." I said, "Okay." And I mean, he said, "You're going to get worn out. It's going to kill you." I said, "Okay, if it does, I'm doing something I love. If I got COVID, I was doing something I loved.
Yeah.
And it didn't bother me. I never got sick. The whole season, never got sick.
I didn't either.
So, I mean, and I think it's part attitude and you're, and who we report to. I mean, it's all part of that. But that was in 2021, I did 600 visits, um, which I thought was probably the max that I could do. Well, in last year, in 2022, I did 650. And if everyone had been able to sign up the way that they had originally signed up, because I had some cancellations and things, I would have had probably about 680, 685, something like that. And for me right now, with a 20-minute visit, now some people get back-to-back visits, so then they'll actually have 50 minutes of time. And the first time I suggested that to a family, they said, "Oh wow, we got 50 minutes. We could really have a lot of fun." And I sat back and said, "Oh my God, what am I going to do for 50 minutes?" I mean, it's constant. It's constant work. I mean, there's never a dull mental moment that you have that you can have to yourself. And this last year, I have an old leather binder. It's very old. It was my father-in-law's, and he used it for work. And I use it as my ELF report because that's one of the things that they can fill out in the appointment section of getting an appointment. They can fill out the ELF report, tell me who the kids are and what the ages are and different information about them, and who their elf on the shelf is and stuff like that. So I had kept that book kind of hidden, and when people would when children would sit on my right hand side, they could see the book, and they would say, "Well, what is that book?" "Well, that's the ELF report book." "Oh, okay." And they would start reading it. So last year I said, "Well, what am I going to do? I mean, is this hidden information? Is this private, personal information?" I said, "No, their mom wrote it." So I print it all out, put it in the book, and now what I do when they sit down, I get out the book. I said, "Well, let's see what Herbie said about you." And it's not mom saying it; it's their elf on the shelf, because most everybody's got an elf on the shelf. So I use the book as a prop with real information in it, and they'll read it and say, "They said that about me," and they get mad at their elf, and that kind of stuff. But it all came from their mom, and that's what makes it very personal. And I try to use all that information. Generally, I advertise, in my contract, I said this information is extra information in case we're having a slow visit. Then I will bring this information in. I won't necessarily bring it in for every visit. And so anyway, it works out kind of neat because now that they can sit there and read the book with me, and they'll point out things and say, "Well, no, that's not right. I don't like red licorice." And I said, "Well, I really don't like red licorice either. I like black licorice, especially the little, like the jelly beans, the black licorice jelly beans. I love those because that tastes like reindeer poop, and it looks like reindeer poop, and it tastes like black jelly beans." So anyway, so we have a lot of fun. But from a production point of view, this year I had 2 elves, and it made things a lot easier on me because they would take care of all the administrative stuff and bring the people in and usher them out, get them their trinkets and trash and things like that I provide. And it really it got much more efficient, and it gave me time to sit and think about what else I needed to do to make the visit more valuable.
Yeah.
The things that I have in the building are some of them are probably close to 100 years old. And there's a lot of stuff that's 60, 80, 70, 60, 70, 80 years old. And I consciously go around finding this stuff at antique stores and wherever. And when I come down to School of Santa, on my way back, what I do is I stop at antique stores and pick out stuff that I picked up an original Daisy BB gun that I have displayed.
That's cool.
And
Well, don't shoot your eye out with it.
Exactly. And it's a real one, and it does work. But it's up high, and I had children going up and trying to pull it down and take a look at it and what have you. And it's not the earliest model. It actually has a plastic stock on it. But I collect that stuff. I have a theme every year. And 2 years ago, the theme was kitchen utensils that you wouldn't normally see, and things that Grandma and Grandpa would have used when they were kids. And the children had never seen that stuff. The old can openers, all kinds of stuff. And then the year before that, it was communication. I've got a old hand crank wall telephone, and that's how we communicated at the North Pole. And before that, it was a string and a can. But there was a whole program developed around these different communication things. Was it last? Yeah, it must have been the year before last. We had pictures, and I found an old stereoscope where you had the card in it with the two pictures on it, and you looked at it, it looked like it was 3D. Well, that's the original, whatever they are, the VR glasses. That was the original one. So, that's the kind of thing that I do. And everything in the shed, or I should say a lot of the things in the shed, are story related. And one of the other things we do, and I can look around, so I don't have a fixed program for the visit. Everybody gets a unique visit. There are some.
I'll tell you what, this is a good place to lead into the photos that we have, the little 2-minute video we put together for you, Loren.
Yeah.
So let's move along and look at some of this stuff that you've talked about real quick, and we'll come back after this.
Okay.
So, Lauren, you had mentioned that it's kind of become a museum. I can see why. You have a lot of stuff inside there. I think probably one of the main questions our viewers may have, we're going to move along to see if the viewers have any questions or comments here in a moment. But what size is the dimensions of the shed?
The shed is 14 by 32, and it had basically, I guess you'd say, 4 rooms. It had a bedroom, it had a bathroom, it had the living area where you saw the chair, and then it had a kitchen area which was by the entrance, and that's what originally started. And most of that didn't. Rebuilt it, moved walls, all within that first month and a half, and rebuilt it, redid the paneling inside of it, did all the lighting and everything. The lighting was very important because people were taking their own pictures. So I got several people to come in with cameras and with cell phones to take pictures to see if I had shadows, if I had, kind of the same kind of stuff that Jessica does, but on a very much lower scale. But I wanted to make sure that people were going to get a memory and have the detail that they wanted to get. Now those pictures were all taken from the center of the Santa room, and all I did was spin around 360. So no matter where you take a picture, you have a good background, and the background changes depending where you take the picture. And that was important to me because I didn't want to make it look like, here's the kitchen, and then here's the next, whatever. I don't have a kitchen in mind yet. It's one of the things I'm thinking about. But basically, I didn't want them to have to take their pictures and crop them, because that's what you end up doing when you have backdrops and things like that, or 3D studio like this that doesn't blend together. And this all pretty much blends together. So it worked out very, very well. And I've had a lot of professional photographers come in. I've had some that have been around for like 50, 60 years. And they said, wow, this is really amazing. And they were
Very
taking
nicely done. I got to agree.
Go ahead.
Let's see if our viewers have any questions for you.
Ray Bradshaw.
Yeah, Ray says, I love that old globe. Where did you find it at, Lauren?
Well, that's one of my haunts is Salvation Army. And I walked in there one day and I was just looking to see if there's anything around, and I walked past this thing and it was like a magnet. And as I was standing there looking at it and spinning it around, and a lady walks up with her daughter and said, "We need that in our living room." And man, I picked that sucker up and put it in my had one of the carts there and put it on there and took it out of there really, really quick. But no, that's where that came from. It's a big globe, and it's not accurate anymore because it's so old. But
yeah,
it works.
Very nice, very nice. So, any other questions out there, folks? Throw them in if you've got anything to ask or comment or question for Lauren. And while you're doing that, I'm going to move along real quick, and we're going to reveal tonight's trivia answers, and then we'll come back and finish up right after this. So, revealing tonight's trivia answers, schoolofsantas.com for the chance to put your name in the hat for the scholarship. In 2002, divers discovered something at the bottom of the lakes of the Ozarks. When they got it to the surface, they was able to confirm that it was what, and then found out it actually belonged to, and what it was a Porsche. And once they run the VIN number on it and did some research, found out it belonged to Nicolas Cage. So a Porsche, Nicolas Cage, and our winner there is Ray Bradshaw. So Ray, your name goes into the hat for the drawing for the scholarship.
And so Bob, well, hold on, Bob.
Yeah.
When you were finding this out, did you find out why his Porsche was in the bottom of the lake?
I did not. I came to two conclusions in my own mind, and it, of course, the obvious is someone stole it and ended up dumping it when they figured out that maybe it was Nicolas Cage's or that they were about to get caught or whatever. The second would be insurance. But when I
Ray says it was stolen.
stolen, okay, Ray says it was stolen, and kind of the reason that this all fits in is because the lakes of the Ozarks naturally is there in your region. And then what happened to you this last weekend? It just kind of I saw that and said, well, it's kind of fitting for the show. So Ray's done somewhere up in there. I seen Ray had put up a link. I think was to the actual story, and so if you want to go back and click on that, folks, you can and see the full story on that.
So should I get some scuba divers to go back down there and see if they find a truck?
Well, we were at the lake, right?
Right?
If they was to drain every lake in the country, I'm sure that you'd be surprised at what you'd find at the bottom of them. StuffForSanta.com. The Lake of the Ozarks has some truly bizarre findings. One such oddity, usually not associated or present in fresh water, is freshwater jellyfish, which I thought was really crazy because I never heard of such. But that's the correct answer. And who was our winner?
Diane Elizabeth. I can't say the last name.
Diane Elizabeth, and I believe it's Vine, Vien. Is that how you pronounce it, Diane? I think it is. Anyway, you're the winner for that. So you'll be getting a couple of rolls of coins. If you will, send Spangle a private message with your mailing address so that he can get those mailed out to you.
Let me know if you want the lady ones.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Spangle, back over to you, sir.
All right, well, Loren, we have one last question. If you won the lottery, how would you use it to make improvements or add value to your business? Taking it to the next level, you'd want to, I'm sure.
Well, my ultimate dream has always been to have a destination Santa location, and with rides and all kinds of stuff. I mean, decorated the way I would expect to see the North Pole. Uh, and that's what I would love to do. Whether it would be um, in an old food store or a factory or something like that, where you got where you can do some of this kind of stuff. The problem is for me is that it takes a lot of money, and money makes the world go around, I guess. But the thing is, in our area up here, we don't have any Santa destinations. I think Arizona's got one or two maybe, and there are a couple elsewhere around the country. Of course, Indiana and Illinois both have them, but that's one thing that I would love to do. I would love to have a bigger venue than what I've got, but again, I've talked to some people and they said, "Why would you want to make it any bigger?" I said, "Well, I can get more people in it, and I can get more stuff in it, and we've got so much more stuff at the toy museum at the North Pole, and the elves keep asking me where are we going to put some of this stuff, because they bring it down every year and redecorate, move things around, and add new stuff and all that kind of stuff. So they're wondering what else we can bring down, and this year they're bringing down a train, and we're going to be putting a train in.
That's cool.
And then the other thing we're doing a couple other things. We're you know the one thing about the shed is that it's become, because of the control I have over music and lighting and stuff like that, we're becoming recognized as a special needs location, and whether it be I mean, people text me and ask me, well, how big is your door? We want to be able to get our wheelchair through our electric wheelchair. Well, we have a ramp up to the 8x8 platform, and they can get in, and it's an easy transition, and we have a great time with these children. And I enjoy it. Autistic children, especially, they're becoming very. I'm seeing more and more every year, which I love to see because it's fun. And there's so much more stuff that it's like the ROI on what I built is basically 24 to 30 months. So
Well, let me ask you this question real quick. Are you doing anything else with your building during the rest of the year, or is it just pretty much sitting there and you're just updating for next year?
it's sitting there being upgraded, and hopefully the upgrades won't take more than like 2 weeks. Because this year, what I'm hoping to do is to bring in photography studios with their clients, or they can come in and take pictures for backgrounds or whatever they want to do. And I want to do that because it gets more people exposed to it. Now, I only advertise through Facebook. I don't do anything else. And my ads that I've been putting out, the first year I put out, I don't know, a couple, 3, 4 maybe. And I was writing stories. I was writing little vignette stories. And I'd get just a few more visitors. And the next year, what I did is I cut that down, but I added pictures, and the view count, or whatever you call it, went up, and we got uh, a lot more visibility. And then I also bought a few Facebook ads, which target certain areas, and those didn't work very good. And newspaper ads don't work very good, at least not for what I'm doing. And the other thing that I found is that if I put pictures out, and just pictures with a very short, oh, Santa knows, and it's a picture of a reindeer with his nose. Santa knows that you want to get an appointment, so call up the Santa shed and get an appointment. That little bit just explodes. And then when I show pictures of the inside, it explodes even more. I've had in a year, I'll have like 32,000 hits on Facebook, which is a lot. And now I'm on Google, and I'm starting at my website is the Santa Shed, all one word, at .com. It's and they're all the same, and it's also on Gmail. And the farthest away that this past year, a family drove 3.5 hours to get to the shed, and then they turned around and drove 3.5 hours home. And they're from way north central Michigan, and Birch Run, which is north of where we live, between me and Midland. I've got a group of people that come down from there. I've got people that come from I had one this year from Canada, and 50, 60 miles, hour and a half is not uncommon. And what I'm finding is that, and this is for Santas that are out there doing whatever they're doing, one of the best, I shouldn't say it that way maybe, but one of the most unique areas to advertise in or to become known in are the women blogs. There's lots and lots of women's blogs in towns and townships and nationwide and what have you. And these ladies get together and they start saying, well, where can you find a Santa that's got a 3-dimensional studio that we can go get pictures and see Santa? and the only one around is mine. So all of a sudden, I'm starting getting all these people coming from wherever and coming a long distance to see me, and I'm so humbled by that. It's just unbelievable. I got goosebumps right now just thinking about it. That people would spend the time to come and see Santa when they've got a Santa in their backyard. I mean, they could go to Frankenmuth, they could go to many other places, but they elect to come to see me, and I want to give them the best that I can give them, just like every Santa wants to, and I want to give them that experience, and it's really neat. But
Well, and that's the thing is you're giving them a unique experience, something they haven't experienced with the Santa shed, and you're putting out good quality product as Santa yourself, and with the experience itself. So, hey, like I said in the beginning, I think you're really on to something, Lauren. I think this is something that many of us might have thought about, but didn't really know where to start. And your story tonight has been able to open our eyes to a lot, believe me. And I think that you're sitting in a great place. Now, I do have a suggestion. You was talking about it, maybe making it bigger. You could always park another one right beside it and knock a hole in the wall,
I've thought
or
about
take one, and sliding glass doors or something and expand into the next size. But it's something to think about for sure.
yeah. See,
I
I'm
think he's
actually
going to find a lot of Santas are going to be reaching out to him and asking him some questions. The
Well,
how's and
and we
what's
have
and the
Jeff.
that.
Yeah, and we have Jeff McMullen coming up. Many of you seen
Yep,
Jeff on the show before. He and Lauren have backwards and forth with each other for some time, and Jeff stepped out and went ahead last year and implemented the same type of plan. We'll have him on April 11th coming up, so we're going to find out a whole lot more about how Jeff was able to do it. And like I said, him and Lauren have worked together on these ideas, and man, I'm so happy for you. I'm stoked. It's something that I've been thinking about for some time, and this makes me want to get out there and do it. You know,
see, and Jeff has a very um, he's done it in a very methodical way. Not see, I keep going back to this left of bang and right of bang, and he did his before anything happened in his life that was detrimental. I mean, really, really detrimental. So he's doing everything left of bang before something bad happens. I reacted and did everything right of bang, which means after reaction time. Uh, it's like an IED goes off and then you react to it, that
yeah,
kind of thing. And mine was being canceled from Cherry Hill, and which is fine. It was the best thing that ever happened to me, to be
yeah.
honest with you. But
Well, things
here's
happen for a reason, Lauren.
yeah, here's the thing that I in going back and looking at what I'm doing, um, I regret not starting it earlier because it's just absolutely such a different environment than a home visit. It's my environment, and I hide elf on the shelves around the building. And so when the children come in that have been there one or two times, maybe three times, they'll say, "How many elves are here today?" And I said, "Well, I think there's 6 today, or there's 7, or there's 5, or whatever." And one Grinch, and all of a sudden they take off and they run around the shed to find them all, and everybody, even mom and dad, are going around counting them. It's really, I mean, it's that kind of environment, and that I wanted to create, that it could feel like their own home. They play with all the toys, even some of these 50, 60, 70-year-old toys. They play with them, and they do get broken. But the thing is, they never get an opportunity to play with something like that. And it's in a museum, but this museum is a hands-on one. And the other thing that for from my perspective, and I think it was Santa True is the one that I remember hearing it from, is that you have a finite number of days that you can perform your character. And on the average, that's going to be 650 to 750 the number of days. And I'm 75 right now. So I've already used up 450 of my days from when I started. So am I going to have 225 days left, or am I going to have 300 left or 400 left? I don't know.
Yes.
None of us know. I mean, that's out of our hands. But the thing is that if you wait until you can't do your normal Santa activity to do something like what I've done or what some of the other people have done, um, you're not going to have time, and you're not going to want to invest the money and the time to do what we're doing. I mean, and that's really the earlier you could start this and use it, just maybe only use it a couple days a week instead of 7 days a week like I do. And you fill in the rest of it with corporate events or mall events or whatever. But you have a way of rejuvenating your mind, and that's, you have to decide when the right time is to pull the trigger on it.
And that's something that Jeff does because he also still worked at the sporting goods store.
Yep.
And also still worked at the train museum.
Yep.
So he balanced the three between his Santa, what you call it, a cottage, or you had a name for it.
Cottage. His is the cottage.
Yeah, Santa Cottage, and the other two. So it does give, like I said in the opening of the show, it gives you freedom, it gives you options, and it gives you an ability to do something, as I mentioned earlier, that is a unique experience. And folks crave new things. Folks, look for that new experience. And like I said, I think you're sitting on top of a good deal here, and we're so happy that it has turned out to be a success for you because, like you said, it's a big jump, and you had a lot to work out to get to where you're at. We hope that you have continued success. I know you said that you possibly, realistically, may be able to do as many as 750 visits, and of course, the calendar goes from a whole week, and then we fall back a day for 7 years, and we get that week back, and
Right.
so it depends on time that you have to work and do. But if you will, stay with us, and we'll go back into the green room once we close the show out, and we'll chat a little bit longer, and we'll be able to thank you better back there. Over to you, Spangle.
All right. Hey, you were. Go ahead.
Can I make one more comment?
Yeah, you bet.
The information, the PowerPoint is not copyrighted. And if anyone is interested in a copy, if you want to send them a copy, you certainly can. And
Okay, and do you have a address or anything that you want to put out there that people can contact you direct, or?
Yeah, you can private message me through Facebook, or you can do, if you want to do, I got a Gmail account, which is thesantashed@gmail.com.
There you go, perfect.
Yeah, those are the two easiest ways. Then if we get something going that where we want to do some more talking, then I'll give out my phone number. But
very good.
But no, I'm more than happy to help. It's like Jeff. It was the right time for him, and I hope other people have the same thing. Find that maybe this is the right way to do things, or another way to do things.
I love your story. I love the approach you've taken. I love everything that you've done. And, like I said, we hope that you have continued success because you're successful at it. That means other of us can be successful at it.
Yep.
And we can take your model, as you said, it's not something that you have copywritten or anything, but we can take your model and make it a little bit easier to transition than what you went through, because you did have a quick transition period there that year that you switched over. But anyway, stay with us till we go back in the green room. We're going to close the show out here, but back over to Spangle.
Okay.
All right, guys. Remember, that's thesantashed@gmail.com if you got any questions for him. Anyways, remember to join us next week for another Tuesday Night Live episode. And be sure to tune in to next Monday's Bob Randall and Company show to see what they've got cooking. Find us on the web. Find us on the what's that thing called? YouTube.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my goodness. All right, Michael, you got any closing thoughts, man, at this point?
Man, I got all kinds of things going in my head. This is a great show. Loved it, man. Fantastic.
Lauren, we want to thank you so much for joining us and being our featured guest. Great show, man. Again, it's man, my head is just going 90 to nothing on the inside here, thinking about the possibilities with of what you have laid out for so many of us.
Well, I do about anywhere from 4 to 6 different schools every year. I go to them, and Spangles is one that I go to every year. And what if any of the schools that are out there that would be interested in sharing this kind of information with their students, I'd be more than happy to be part of that. So
Very good. There you have it, guys. Reach out to Loren if you're interested in having him speak more or come and speak at one of your get-togethers. All right.
Well,
So
I mean, in person, come to the School of Santas.
yeah,
there you go. And I was just going to say a big thank you to schoolofsantas.com and stuffforsanta.com. Don't forget all our shows are recorded and can be found on our Facebook group. And of course, don't forget the YouTube channel, as Spangle mentioned, at the Tuesday Night Live show. While you're over there, be sure and look for the Bob Randall and Company Live preview show. We've got our own channel, so you have to go searching for it. But check us out. To everyone, good night, Spangle.
Everyone, good night, Spangle.
Remember to join us for our next Tuesday Night Live each week, 7 p.m. Central Time. Same clause channel, same clause time. Count your blessings, not your sorrows. That's for Eric and Moesha. And I wore the hat tonight for Jetta. Jetta liked this hat when y'all were over the other day.
Jetta, say hi. Quick. He's wearing the hat that you liked.
Well, Jetta, I worked tonight, dear. Look.
Hi.
All right. So have a blessed week, everyone. Until next time, on behalf of Lauren, Spangle, Angela, and myself, and my Mrs. Claus over here, Carol, thank her for sitting in tonight and helping Angela and learning how to work the board. I'm Santa Bob McMaster saying good night. Remember, always let your Santa and Mrs. Claus heart shine bright. Never stop learning. Hope to see you on Monday and right back here on Tuesday. Good night, everyone.
Merry Christmas. Oh.